Executive Director of Leadership Tomorrow. As you just heard, we're going to be recording this call, just FYI, so we can share it with others who were not able to join. I am thrilled to be here with you this morning. I am joined by a few of my colleagues, Erin Parker, who is LT'17 from King County Superior Court, C. Marie Taylor, who is LT'23, our flagship program consultant, and Megan Rudolph, who's been the one behind the scenes magically pulling this all together and making it all feel seamless, who's our senior comms and operations manager for LT. And we're also joined by a couple of phenomenal alumni who are going to be able to hear from momentarily. So what I wanted to let you all know that this is being recorded and that as we go through the conversation, please feel free to put questions in the chat. We'll also have a Q&A at the very end, but we want to make sure that all of your questions, little and big, are answered along the way. So put them in the chat, and then at the end, we'll make sure we'll be responding to some kind of more tactical ones as we go in the chat, and then the other ones we'll get to after that, if they require more conversation. So here are our mission, vision, and values. And I would just say our purpose and reason for being is really, LT is here to educate, inspire, connect, catalyze cross-sector leaders who work together for collective impact. We are really working towards a resilient and equitable region where people from all communities and identities thrive. And we're very purposefully not just here about Seattle, but really the broader Puget Sound region. And here you will see our 6 values that we have. I joined a month ago, and I have to say that these values really are true here at LT, and we try to live by them, and we try to hold ourselves accountable to these, which is why the first one is accountability, and then anti-racism and social justice, belonging, collective leadership, community stewardship, and curiosity and humility. So you all are here because you're interested in our leadership program, and we're launching the next program in September. And we are looking for candidates who share our commitment to these values. You will be joining a community of already 2,700 alumni who are working collaboratively to make our region more resilient and equitable. So this is what you get when you participate in Leadership Tomorrow. I'm going to start from the right and move left just to shake things up and see if y'all are awake. So you will deepen and practice racial equity skills by learning how to identify and interrogate systemic inequities and shape a future world that values belonging, collaboration, and human dignity. I have, as I said, I've been here for just a month, and even in that month, in engaging with LT colleagues, I'm already learning more about how to talk about race and how to address some of the issues that have plagued our country for so long. You will expand your leadership potential by really understanding your strengths, by building your confidence, by strengthening your voice, by learning and figuring out how your leadership is really how you can affect your community. You will strengthen your connection to the Puget Sound. You're going to learn so much about this region. I feel like each of us comes from one area. So I came from the health sector. So I knew a lot of people and a lot of things in the health sector, but picking up and learning about basic needs, about the environment, about the economy of Puget Sound really allows you to kind of lift up your impact and become an even stronger leader. And finally, you're going to make a whole lot of friends, and not just friends who you get to go hang out with, which is nice, but you're going to make friends and relationships with people who are going to help you have even more impact in what you're trying to do in this region. So with that, I think I'm handing it over to my wonderful friend, C. Marie.
Hi, y'all. Happy Monday. I'm C. Marie. I am the class of LT'23 and lifelong learner, newer to the area. I moved here this is 2024. I moved here in 2022. And before I had an address, I called the folks at Leadership Tomorrow and was like, I'm coming to the area. I don't have an address, but I believe in leadership programs and know if I want to learn all about the community, make some friends, make some business connections, figure out the best restaurants, figure out good vendors, like figure out all the things, I need to come to LT because they have that group here. So I literally put in a Maryland address when I applied in 2021, whatever it was, and then give them, of course, my address when I moved here. So I really believe in leadership programs and have not had coffee, and I'm like this all the time. So I'll try to slow it down because it's Monday morning and I'm from the East Coast and I know we're a lot. So I'm trying to get the West Coast vibe. Well, so Um, but I say all that to say that that's part of the reason why I love LT and working with LT is because what's on the slide is true. If you apply for the program, you get into the program, you will have the opportunity to build community and lasting friendships, right? If you put in as much as you want. So that's the big thing I'll try to talk to you about in this first slide is that you'll have this opportunity to build like these various networks from all across the state, right? Across the region in different industries, different life skills, different places in their life, and that you'll have the opportunity to do some of the things I've done. So I have been able to build some new friendships. I have joined a couple of boards. I've increased some of my business. I get to work with LT. And I just keep learning and going to like awesome places. So that's what you have the opportunity to do with this program. And there's this 2,700 people who've done the program before that you have access to, right? So whatever you're looking for and how you want it to show up for you can happen in the program should you decide to apply and then be in it. So that's the overview that you could get. And then if we think about, well, what's the framework for how do we do this work? Because I just listed 17,000 things, how we get that done in 10 months. So we have a framework that we use at LT, and it's based on what does a healthy community look like. And so once you've joined the program, each month we'll spend 8+ hours focused on the element of a healthy community. And some of those elements of a healthy community are the arts, environment, the economy, neighborhoods, arts and culture, um, the environment. And so every month we'll focus on an element of of a healthy community and what that could look like through a different lens and through your imagination and your input. And so we spend the day really focused on it. And we start off the section with an opening retreat. We have a mid-year retreat in the middle, but we really try to take each of these issues and figure out how we can work on solutions together while we're building a network. Do you like my nice long pause, but Megan, for the next slide? So part of the program is we'll focus on these 7 elements of a healthy community. And during the day, we'll also try to talk about this through a community leadership lens. What does it look like in a collective leadership? What does it look like in traditional leadership? How do some of these things happen in ways that I have an ability to explore my own strengths in leadership, identify areas for growth, really build confidence in things that I'm not maybe so confident because I've got these 79 other folks that may have some skills that I can learn from. And then envision for me how I want to show up as a leader to impact things that I care about, which is why we take the time to go through the 7 elements of a healthy community, like I mentioned before, because if you think about collective work and moving forward, some of us have to work on the environment. Some of us have to work on education. Some of us have to work on arts and culture. Some of us care about neighborhoods and communities. So how do I take my personal passions and relay that in a way that demonstrates some leadership in that area while leaning on the expertise of other folks in the community. And some of that happens from our learnings, and some of that happens from the activities that you'll do together in small and large groups. So that's how we get the opportunity to expand our leadership potential. And then all the work that we're going to try to do together is through an race equity lens. And so we'll give you some specific time to really focus on how do we think about systematic inequities, through the lens of the economy, through education, through arts and culture, right? And how do we reshape a world that has more value on belonging, connection, collaboration, and frankly, humanity? Because I feel like we all need to work on recognizing individuals' humanity is a little bit more, right? Myself included. So what we try to do is think about, well, what did we learn from the past, particularly around that content area? So let's say it's the arts. What did we learn from the past and how do we carry those lessons moving forward? Thinking about people's individual lived experiences and how do we bring that to the forefront so we don't keep repeating some of the patterns that aren't helpful in moving the region forward. So it's really thinking about what are the opportunities to think about some of this work through a race-based, or I call it an equity lens to support this work. And then we'll do some specific, like a deep dive on thinking about racial equity in the middle of the program. We'll have a whole day focused on racial equity. So we'll start to hopefully build a foundation with you all, take a deep dive in the middle, and then towards the end of the year, continue to think about this work through a race equity lens. So really trying to stack it, not just jumping in, at the beginning, but thinking about it from that lens. And so what's the structure? I hit it at a little bit, but if we start from the beginning, right? We've got this great orientation where everyone's coming into the room, trying to figure out who's there, what's going on, how are we going to work together? And then we'll have this beautiful fall retreat where you'll get the chance to meet the other people in the program, find out a little bit more about them, find out about for yourself what you really want to get out of it, to do some tone setting for the program and for yourself. And then each month we'll have these possibility days. We call them possibility days to have this asset-based framing where we think about arts and culture. Well, what's the possibility of me being connected to this work and showing up differently? So what do we do for each of these days to think about the topic areas? Then we have that mid-year retreat that's really focused on racial equity and how do we think through the things that we've learned thus far through a race equity lens, and how do we have deep conversations now that we've had the chance to build some relationships. You'll have the chance to work in a smaller group where it says leadership labs to think about your individual and collective work as a leader in the region and to have some accountability partners. So we'll have a possibility day and you'll have a break in that point of the day to meet with a smaller group to think about your leadership journey and how it's working for you and to get some feedback from folks. So we really love that, and to do some community service with a smaller group. And so that's the structure of the program, but it's really, think about it as I'm going to call it a circle. Well, I don't know if I love triangles. A circle where we start with who are the folks in the room? What do we want to learn? Right? Let's take each month and learn something and figure out how I'm showing up as a leader. Let's have some deeper conversations around race equity based on what I learned and what I know as myself as a leader. And let's continue around how we're going to show up as leaders now that we're finishing out the program. And then off you go to be hopefully a different leader, right? That's more engaged. And then we continue to support you through leadership tomorrow engagement events. And so that's the full circle of the program. And then I think the last thing you want to know, well, who are these people that I'm going to get to meet, right? So each class has roughly 80 participants. So there's a flavor of everybody. There's private, nonprofit, public sectors in the program. 45+% of the people are people of color. I think this year in this cohort, there's actually 60% people of color in this cohort. So really trying to reflect the region, the nation, right? The age ranges are 25 to 60. So you've got this opportunity to think and talk to people from different age ranges, which I really love, keeps me really smart. And then they live and work around the Puget Sound. So we've got folks that are in Seattle proper and not maybe as far as I am, but across the spectrum, the area.
And I was like,
all righty, now I get to jump in and talk about the application. First, I have to say, I can't believe you don't like triangles because that's the strongest shape. What? We'll have to talk later. We're building bridges with that. Again, I'm Aaron Parker. I serve as the Screen and Selection Chair. And yeah, we're going to dive into the application process. Biggest thing to think about and put on your radar now is the application is due April 1st. Everyone who applies participates in a 30-minute interview. So just be sure, you're going to do an application and you're also going to do the interview, and those are scored separately, put together, and that gives you a total score. But we'll dive more into that. I'm ready for the next slide. All righty. And so now, what are we looking for in a candidate? We're looking for the commitment to community engagement. Again, as many have said already, you're coming here, you want to strengthen your connection to the community, understanding of the community, work with those in the area in these different sectors. So your commitment to community engagement is very important. Leadership in your area of influence. And so again, we'll have private, nonprofit, and public sectors in the cohort. And so you coming to the table with that leadership in your area of influence is important. Curiosity, so openness to multiple viewpoints and desire to broaden your perspective. Willingness to work in a multiracial learning environment, engage with others at different stages in their learning journey, and deepen their personal role in advancing racial equity. And that's a huge piece as a screening and selection committee, we're going through all these applications, we're having the interviews, and you're trying to build the perfect cohort every single year. So the cohorts don't ever look the same, but it's like, how do these group of people mesh together and what's going to give people the best experience? And so your willingness to dive into these conversations and being open to the fact that I may be further down the road than some people that are going to be in the program and be ready to work through that. So that's something to be mindful of as you decide to apply. The next one is a strong interest in the curriculum and a willingness to learn the practices of LT values and practice LT values. Those were mentioned earlier. And reasons for wanting to participate in the program beyond networking. So again, it's been mentioned, you're going to make a network. You're going to, friends, professional network. You're going to make these connections in the community. After I finish LT, of course, like C. Marie said, you're joining, people are saying, hey, you need to be on this board over here. And so you're going to make those connections, but we want something more than just the connections and trying to network. And so be thinking about that as you apply, because that comes through in your application and your interview. And we would love to see more than just, I'm here to boost my network so I can run for office. But we do love people that run for office. Next slide, please. All right, so here's some tips about strengthening your application. Before you apply, you want to review the program schedule, because it's very important that you're going to make those dates, the retreat, orientation, all of those things are very important, because again, we only have a short amount of time. And like C. Marie has said, you're going to get maybe 8+ hours a month. And if you're saying you're going to miss one of those, it's a huge chunk of the education in the curriculum. So review that schedule and say, hey, does this work for me before you apply? Review the website. I think you'll hear us over and over talk about that, like everything's on the website because we try to put all that information there so you can revisit that. So always checking the website. You can see the values, how the program is set up. Again, the program schedule, all that stuff will be on there. And then when you're filling out the application, essay prompts have multiple parts. And so making sure that you respond to every piece of the question. You want to be specific and authentic, and you want to give yourself some time. So please do not wait till the last minute. A huge piece about that, as I mentioned before, you're going to do an application and you're going to do an interview, and those are two separate groups of people that are going to be reviewing that. So you want to be as thorough as possible in your application and as thorough as possible in the interview. Next slide, please. All righty, dollars, tuition, financial aid, and kind of the final reminder. So tuition this year is $6,000. Financial aid and payment plans are available. You need to apply for that online by April 1st. There's a $100 application fee. And then again, we interview everybody. And please don't let the $6,000 or the $100 be the reason why you're not going to apply. You should reach out to Megan and see what the options are. Because again, we're looking for the right group of people, and that means that we may have to support some of our colleagues in this process, and there is the funds available. as available. So please do reach out sooner than later and try to figure that out with Megan. But yeah, application, do the first. Don't wait till the last minute because then you're going to be in Megan's email. And we have to draw a hard line there just because we get so many applications and you're trying to coordinate all the reviewing of the applications and the interviews and scoring. And there's a tight schedule that Megan and LT staff have put together, and we need to stick to it. So please be mindful of that. I think I'm done with this slide. All righty, and so now for the good part. I'll start with, we don't see any questions in the chat, so you all might be awake. But please do drop those questions in the chat. We're going to get to answering some of those. Hopefully we covered some of them in the PowerPoint, but right now we're going to move over to our alumni perspective, and it's great that you're going to get some very current alumni in the program. I went through 2017, but we have some LT'23 alum here that are going to speak to their experience in the program, and I'll pass it over to them.
Hi, everyone. I think I'm going to start Seferiana Day. I use she, her pronouns. I was in the class of LT'23, and I'm here to share just a few highlights from the program for me. Something I love about cohort programs is that they're so unique and special because you have this amazing group of people and you'll never have that same group of people again. And a lot of my work has been in campaigns, and I feel like campaigns are very similar where you're going through this really intense experience. And then by the end, you're like, we made it and we're bonded. And that's exactly how LT was. I think a highlight for me is that when I came into the program, I was a business owner. I was running a political consulting firm, but I was also wanting to leave it. And I was kind of seeking a transition back into public service. And so the LT really helped me to kind of from the high level, like understand the regional issues and kind of all of the different kind of issues that we've already talked about, but also really getting on the ground level and for my own leadership, getting to meet other people. And kind of coming out of the pandemic, I was really able to just build more bonds and relationships and really have conversations about where I was in my own process. One thing that stands out for me was at the mid-year retreat, we did open space where people got to basically create their own categories for discussion. And we got to choose where we went to talk. And I ended up in a group where we ended up talking about like the workplace and sexism and just all of these really, personal issues. And I was really actually able to process some of my own, what I was going through. And it wasn't actually part of the curriculum, but it was like, we were able to create our own topics for conversation. And yeah, that was just one memory that stands out. And I think everyone will tell you the best thing is the relationships and the people. Even this past weekend, I met up with someone who was in one of my small groups, and we talked about her own like transitioning, what she wants to do next and how we can support each other through our professional lives and leadership. And so it really does just keep going. So I think I'll stop there and turn it over to Ton, but those are just sort of my highlights for now.
That's a great start, Seferiana. So Seferiana and I were in the same class, LT'23. My name is Thanh Nguyen. I go by she, they pronouns. Similar, I'll echo kind of Seferiana in the sense like I really appreciate a cohort kind of perspective, and just kind of the different perspectives that I might not be aware of, and kind of like a more intersectional perspective, and so I think that's something I always kind of look out for. But LT was an experience for me because it was the biggest cohort I've ever been. Like the biggest cohort before this was like maybe a group of 15. And so this was a challenge for me in terms of like when I applied, trying to be really intentional during my application process, what I really wanted to get out of the program, because I think that really kind of helps you as you kind of apply for the program and kind of keep it in focus. And so for me, I was really in a transition of like my job, because my background is in nonprofits and a lot of it's in housing advocacy. But the past few years, I've gotten into philanthropy, and it's not as hands-on involved as I would like. And I would really like to challenge funders to kind of like really, fund in an equitable lens to their organizations that they help support. And so that's what I was looking for during my LT experience. Some of the highlights for me during my time was I really bonded with my lab team. So part of LT's experiences, like during at least our cohort, was to be paired with the organization and to help support them. And so we were able to pair with a Black-led nonprofit that helps brown and Black youths into the medical field. And so our lab team helped them figure out their mentorship process, their communication process, and their volunteer process. And that was really a tangible outcome for us. And we just had a really blast. And we still keep in contact with that organization after LT. And so that was really great. And I think on a personal experience is that during LT, I kind of really had to reflect my own individual kind of leadership and how I show up in spaces. I think when you're in a big cohort, it's kind of hard to find your voice this time. And I think that really challenges you to hone how you show up in your most authentic self. And so that was a really kind of like a self-evaluation for me. And so I really enjoyed that. I think that is it for me. See me where you're made any of you kind of like want to go see what's that next.
I think now we're jumping into the Q&A.